Hello, this is Dr. Paul. Welcome. I am here on Bridges Live, and actually you can also catch me on this live video broadcast on YouTube, Dr. Paul Grandmaster on YouTube, and you can also catch me here on Instagram and Facebook. We're going to be doing this live every day from 7 to about 7:20 to catch up everyone on what you call the healthy mind. So in this time, this is what we're doing. So welcome on Bridges Live. So let's get right into it. How are you guys doing? I know a couple of you people are popping on already. And I am Dr. Paul, as you know, and this is Dr. Paul Healthy Mind. I know I've been doing this for several weeks now, and you remember you can catch all the other shows on either Facebook or my YouTube channel, Dr. Paul Dyer Grandmaster. You can go on that channel. You can also see it on Instagram Live. You can see it on Periscope. But more importantly, where you can catch me there and my Bridges Live channel, iHeart, iTunes channel. I want to talk to you, everyone, about the healthy mind. And I started this because I know since we've been home, it's a stay-at-home, and it seems like most of the people who catch me on every morning and has heard this before is that in this time, I believe that we are in a time of crisis. So I am looking around because a lot of times I have different people who are asking questions. So if you want to ask questions, you could just put it in the little comment section below, and then I can see it as it pops onto the YouTube channel or the Facebook channel or even on the Instagram or Periscope. So feel free to ask any questions. This is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what the healthy mind is this week. Was going to be communication. That's what I wrote up here. Communication. What is communication? Well, we know is to transfer. That's really what it is. Communication is a transfer because we can communicate with animals, we can communicate with people, we can communicate with all things around us, right? And I've always said this, part of our spirituality is through communication, right? Communication with all things matter, right? All things matter because all things are made up of matter. So that is communication. So we know we have different concepts of communication. The reason why I want to talk about communication, because I was talking over this with my wife, and we were saying how many people have different forms of communication, right? So I want to just go over what we're going to be talking about all week long. It's not so much about, I'm going to actually put my people here, and I'm actually going to put a person here, and I'm going to put these things in between them. So with that, we know there's language, there's language meaning sound, right? Sound and waveform. So, even Aristotle says communications is a sound with meaning. So, if we've been studying languages for such a long time, and we know that languages is sound with meaning, is that what it is for you? Because I've always said, words have meanings, and that has always been a problem. I don't know if it's a problem or an interpretation. Let me get this. It's been interpretation because sound, our meanings are what? So I'm going to put this in this box, and I'm going to let me change the color because it's language, sound, and because I'm going to put them in red, and also like playing with my. I also like playing with my markers. The people who are listening to this on iHeart and iTunes and the Apple Podcast, you'll have to go to the visual. But anyway, so we'll go with, we have body, we have meaning, we have environment, we have experience, we have education, And I'm really, what I'm putting in this box, I'm having cultural. If you could see that what I'm putting in this box is a lot of things that separates us in communication. So we have energy. And if you notice, some of you people notice that when we talk about communication, we're going to be talking about languages this week, and we're going to be really breaking down what really separates us and why we're having such a difficult time with communication. And communication is well, you know, a lot of it can be what is interpreted. So we have perception, interpretation, we have chaos, we have dogma, and I'm going to put dogma, and the reason why I'm going to put dogma is because dogma is something that we just get bogged into, that we just can't get ourselves stuck out of. And in the healthy mind, and understanding what a healthy mind is that we are going to talk about how we're going to clear up all this. And if we don't clear up all this, then this stays in between us. So we have distance, we have dissidence. Okay, so we have abstract. You know, one of the things about abstract is like, even if Galileo, you know, we look at a lot of our communication people or things that have been studying with languages, and languages have been studied for a long time. This is not, I mean, even Galileo studied languages, and so, again, I'm not going to give you the history on Galileo. I'm not going to give you history on Plato, because, you know, Plato was the first person that I remember reading about languages and how it was a distortion of internal self. So we are going to go through what I language is and what E languages are. We're going to go over what how our brain interprets language and communication, because a lot of people said that languages and communication has a lot to do with the transfers of signals or signals in our brain. So if we went over what we talked about last week and several weeks before that with the healthy, the emotional brain, the wise, and the wise brain and the healthy brain, rational and emotional, this is all part of that in here too. So we got to talk about the languages of is language really of the mind, or is mind part of the language? You know, that has been those things like even like Kant, Immanuel Kant, one of our philosophers, is saying that languages is something that we have to interpret it from the internal self. Most of the languages that we have is, I'm going to put this, is 90% is internal. 10% is external. So just on that information alone, 90%. A little bit over 90%, but we'll keep the math easy. 90% is internal. Let me do this. Internal, external, so interpersonal communication or personal communication, and if 90% is internal and 10% is external. And even if Plato was talking about, or all of, because remember, languages and communication has been philosophized, and the reason why it has been philosophized is because it's been misunderstood. You know, now that being at the age I am, I'm having grandchildren, and I watch and I listen to my children raise their children, and the way they speak to them is just amazing, and how they're growing and how they're developing. They all have their own different styles. And sitting back, now I'm able to sit back and watch how words influence the children and how children are influencing the communication. We know little different things, if a baby's dropping something, but it's just not about babies. It's about people. And we don't understand how, and we're supposed to be what you call is consciousness, right? We have the subconscious. Well, that's kind of easy if most of the things is going to be part of the brain here. So let's see if anyone has any questions here, because what we're going to go over, we're going to actually break this down, what communication is, and we know it's about language, it's about sound. How about this? Did you know it takes about... Because I was thinking about when people live in different hemispheres, right? People live in different hemispheres of our brain. People live in different hemispheres of our globe here, right? And when we're listening to words, crisis, pandemic, stay at home, martial law, these things have an effect on us. And that's why I wanted to get into this communication. I've always believed that if you understand how you are developing and you understand how your collaboration of understanding comes from. And what I mean by collaboration, because it goes back to the other things I talked about, where you live is a collaboration. What you are studying is a collaboration of your external self, and that's the, okay, so that's the, that, okay, that's, okay, you have I, language, E, language, I language is internal and E language is external. At one time they had wanted to, and this has been tried, come up with a universal language that we can all speak at one. We have Chinese as a language, and that's most popular, in Spanish and so on. And if you have studied different languages, they have a different, we call syntax, and meaning the way of speech. And in the way of speech, it's a little bit different. So if their speech is just a little bit different, then their meanings are a little bit different. If I, living in this area, part of the world here around the D.C. area, I could say New York is near me, right? But then if you lived up the street, I would say that's near me. So who lives near who? Can I get to New York on a bicycle? Yeah, it's not that close. Can I get up the street to the store? That's close. So even the sentence structure doesn't make a lot of sense. And then people say, well, it's about references and interpretation. Well, a lot of the times that when we're talking about references and interpretation, then I don't think, and I was saying this before, I don't think we have enough information. We are not giving ourselves enough information for us to expand on our communication. We seem to be always generalizing the way we are speaking and the way we are communicating. And a lot of people say, well, it's mostly body language. Well, I don't agree with that. And the reason why I don't agree with it is because I think words have the meanings over body language. And then they say, well, it's about action and it's about things. And it depends on if it's a love context and if it's a relationship context. My boss says, I go to work, my boss tells me what to do, and I do it. I don't have to tell him I'm going to do it because he knows I just will. But, you're formulating your type of communication with the other, but that doesn't mean that is the only communication with everyone. And communication is different. The way you communicate with your dog is different than what you communicate with your spouse or children or coworker, or even the way you communicate with your your vehicle. Some people talk to their vehicles, and some people really love their vehicles, and I get all that. But different ways we interpersonalize, the way we transfer, and that's the key. Let me put this in big purple because I don't know how we are going to get through all of this. Hell, we could put, you could probably add so much on there. You could probably put politics. You could probably put how we come to things. When we talk about communication, we are referring to mostly our internal selves, right? And we're going to break down all this. We're going to actually talk about all this all week and how we can actually clear this little section up so we can communicate that much better and that much clearer. Again, welcome. If you guys have any questions on communication and what we want to be talking about and how we're going to be talking about it, please just put in the comment and I'll read it out, and then we'll if I can answer it. So hold on. I have. Good morning, Paul. Great to see you. Well, thank you, James Gerard. Oh my God, we used to live near each other, right? And I could get there on the bike with James. So, man, around the corner, great high school friend. And when we talk about communication, we look at talking about music, and that reminds me of James Gerard and just the areas that we grew up with, and then the personal skills that we've had in relationships. So we've always developed our communications as more of this circle of bond, but we never looked at ourselves as being communicative. Because if we're communicative, and I mean community, when you talk about community, you want to be able to get with everyone, right? And getting with everyone depends a lot on your communication. Did you know, and this is a fascinating fact, it's like, it just came up in my head, I was thinking, so a lot of us times we talked about how we refer to as apes and things like that, and hey honey, how you doing? What about the things that are implied? So my wife asked about, what about the things that are implied? But I'll get there right here. So, apes in different countries around the globe, if you put them together, they can communicate. So how is that? They didn't grow up in the same area? Are they just because they're the same species? You're like, well, because the same. Well, we're the same species as someone from Uganda or China or Japan or any other, the Amazon, and we have a very difficult time communicating. So it has not to do because we're the same species, and I think that's where it gets missed. We get missed because we don't understand that we are the same species, and being in the same species is important to communicate, and that is so imperative and so important. So things are implied. Things are implied because it's coming from the 90% internal. And because implication, implied, meaning internal, is coming out of you. So the only way you can get into implying something is, one, is it's coming from inside of you, but is all thoughts, all communication, all languages, does it all come from the internal? I believe it does. And I believe it also comes from, that's where you go back from your history, meaning your history, how you grew up. Because it could be extending from things that you went through as far as being in the experience, or things that you're coming from, things that you're trying to go to. That's why communications, living in the now, is so important, and that goes back to a lot of other philosophies. Good morning. If you have any questions about communication, we're going to be talking about communication all week long. We're going to be breaking down how the language is sound and wave, or is it meaning with sound? That's one of those things that even Aristotle had asked. We're going to talk about how 90% is internal, 10% is external. And the reason why I want to do this is because we are living in a new time, in a new era, that we are communicating through electronic ways, right? Social media. And things are being missed, or things are being misunderstood. Not being missed like, oh, I missed being able to see someone and physically be around them so I can see the energy of someone. Well, okay, or things being misinterpreted because I'm not getting my other social cues that I used to get. There's a lot of people with Asperger's, and I have children or autistic or anything. Social cues are completely, totally different for us than it is for you guys. And what I mean by that, because I put myself in a little bit of a Asperger's. Let's see. I think I have a question here. Communication has always been interpreted. Let me see this right here. I didn't get that. Someone had tried to ask me on on Instagram, and I didn't understand it. So I apologize for that. So what I mean is that, so going back to when it comes to autistic and Asperger's and interpretation and the way we look at things and the way we see things and the way you hear things has a lot to do with how things are not interpreted, but how it's relayed and transferred. So we're going over the environment, how it affects us. We're going over how perception, interpretation, consciousness, because you remember, we're still in linguistics is still a science. And the science is what? The science can be breaking down into, all things can be revealed in science to be understood. This way it becomes on an even plane, and I believe that. But understanding the science of language, understanding the science of communication, because there is an art of communication, right? We have what you call the art of communication, and the art of communication is important. So I will see you guys tomorrow. We'll start breaking this down. Why don't we speak the same language? That's why we can't communicate. Well, that can be I think that's not true. We'll touch on that later. I don't think that the same language has anything to do with communication, and that's what I want to clear this up. So again, if you have any questions throughout the week, just make sure you put it in and you contact me. You can always add it in there, and you can almost make sure that you have it part of what we're going to be doing for the rest of this week. And you have any questions whatsoever, you can always contact me through my website, is drpaulholisticscience.com, and then we can refer to each other, we can talk to each other, or you can just email me or direct inbox me through one of the social media sites that you have. I wish you all stay healthy, stay blessed, and stay safe. Make sure you do your meditation, make sure you get your prayers out there, and make sure you do your exercises. Even though we're here to stay on, keep social distancing, keep healthy, keep happy, and that's more importantly. And then we're going to work on this communication. I think that's why I'm here, Dr. Paul with Healthy Mind. So let us work on this communication so we can get better, so when we come out of this new era, into this new paradigm, that we will shift so smoothly. Okay? God bless.